Round 4, pick 133, the Kansas City Chiefs traveled all the way to Washington State to select Jalen Hicks, a safety. Now, we all knew that Brett Veach was going to take a defensive back or two because, well, it was the NFL draft, and that's what Brett Veach likes to do. He's got hobbies, and that's one of them. Now, we all knew he was going to take a defensive back or two, but I think most of us imagined that the first defensive back the Kansas City Chiefs selected in this draft, if there were to be multiple, would have been a cornerback, considering the fact that the Kansas City Chiefs just traded a guy who had the best season of his career and a really phenomenal output for a season that ended in a Super Bowl victory. And by the way, ended up having to trade him for essentially peanuts. But we can't pretend that this strategy for Brett Veach and the Kansas City Chiefs has not paid off. They have one of the deepest cornerback rotations in the NFL, and maybe now, depending on what happens with Brian Cook, they will have one of the deepest safety rotations as well. Is going to be very interesting to see how this sort of group of safeties, especially with a guy that I'm pretty sold on, Trey Dean, making the roster, how things are going to work with this group. Now, there is a general consensus on Jalen Hicks, one that, I'll be honest, I didn't do extensive work on the safeties prior to the draft. I knew who Jalen Hicks was. I didn't know that the general consensus about him was what the general consensus about him is. And we will get to that in the analysis part of this video. So this video is going to have a who section where we answer a little bit about who Jalen Hicks is, a strengths and weaknesses where we just kind of go over the overview of what it is that he can do as a player, and then an analysis portion where we talk about how Jalen Hicks might fit on to the Kansas City Chiefs as they are currently constituted and what it might mean for the future of the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I have to say this, I have to put this out there. A lot of times what I try to do is I try to be grounded in these assessments and say, look, there's some upside, there's some downside, there's going to be the truth, which is normally somewhere in the middle of those two. But you get to players like Travis Kelce. I don't think the upside was ever that Travis Kelce was going to be Travis Kelce, and yet Travis Kelce has Travis Kelce'd. The downside on Travis Kelce was immense if you look at what his playing career was prior to Kansas City. Jalen Hicks is probably my favorite pick from this draft. So I am likely to side on the optimistic end of things as far as this video is concerned. And just real quick, guys, this video is the fourth in a playlist here on the channel called 2024 Draft Picks, which includes four videos for individual picks as well as 2 live streams about the draft. So if you were trying to keep up with my coverage of this draft, be sure to hit the subscribe button and stick around if you like or appreciate the work that I do here. Hitting the like button really does help me out as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. Now, let's get into it. So, who is Jalen Hicks? Well, the 6'2", 211-pound safety has 9 3/8 inch hands. 6'2" is in the 79th percentile for safeties. 211 pounds is in the 62nd percentile for safeties. 9 3/8 inch hands is in the 52nd percentile for safeties. 31.5 inch arms, which is 47th percentile for safeties. He has a wingspan of 76 1/4 inch, which is 54th percentile. He ran a 4.50 40-yard dash, which is in the 73rd percentile. A 37.5 inch vertical is 75th percentile. He had a 6.88 3-cone drill, which is 70th percentile, a 4.37 short shuttle, which is in the 16th percentile, a 122-inch broad jump, which is 58th percentile, and he did 16 reps on the bench press, which is in the 42nd percentile. But one of the things that we have to talk about a little bit is the fact that both the bench press, which is going out of fashion for some reason, the bench press as well as those shuttle drills, the 3-cone drill, the short shuttle, 20-yard short shuttle, those drills are often skipped by players, so it is possible that if you do those drills, your times will look worse than they really are because you're really only competing against the guys who are doing the drill because they know they can show off it. You're competing against the guys who are elite at running those drills. So when you're looking at these numbers, you're looking at a guy who's not elite at anything. He's not an elite speed guy. He's not an elite maneuverability guy. He's not an elite explosive guy. He's not an elite strength guy. He's really a down-the-middle kind of guy. And interestingly enough, that's usually the sort of athlete that excels on the football field. The great big muscle-bound guys who have no speed do very poorly in football. And, well, our own draft notwithstanding, oftentimes the guys who have very little strength but just speed do poor in the game of football as well. But those guys whose skills are right down the middle, they seem to have an answer for everything on the football field. One thing from these numbers, however, that is a little bit perplexing is the fact that his short shuttle is 16th percentile. Now, remember, I know what I said, that, yeah, these numbers are to be taken with a grain of salt, but there is something to be said about the percentiles when you've done both of the drills. His short shuttle of 437 is 16th percentile, whereas his 3-cone drill of 688 is 70th percentile. Both of these numbers have to do with agility and acceleration. And a lot of times, if you're pretty good at one, you're pretty good at the other, and if you're bad at one, you're bad at the other. So to see such a large disparity between these percentiles is interesting. So when you watch him on the field, however, there are times where each of these numbers become true. He looks to be much more agile in zone coverage than he is when he's just straight manned up on somebody, and no, that does not make sense. Now, as a sophomore in 2022, he accounted for 76 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 1 sack, 1 interception, and 6 pass deflections. You will notice a great aggregation of stats there. He was counted on to do a little bit of everything, and I'm going to get to why this is the avatar that I chose for JADEN Hicks in the analysis part of things, but that year of 2022, he also played 683 snaps and gave up a rating when targeted of 126. That's not a great number, but we will see a little bit of a swing back here in 2023 as a junior. That is to say that he skipped his senior year to enter the draft. He was accountable for 79 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks, 2 interceptions, 4 pass deflections. He played 787 snaps and gave up a rating when targeted of 75.5. Now, born August 16th, 2002, JADEN Hicks is still 21 years old, so this is what Bret Veach likes to do. He likes to get players that are young enough to still be coachable. That is one of the things that you will see time and again with Bret Veach pulling the trigger in the draft room. When we start looking at the strengths and weaknesses for JADEN Hicks, the one thing that should stand out immediately is that the number one attribute on both sides of this screen, both strengths and weaknesses, is that he's aggressive. Now, this is going to pay dividends in a Steve Spagnuolo defense. Steve Spagnuolo loves aggressive safeties. Steve Spagnuolo seems to love safeties in general. And on the positive side of things, look, you don't get to play safety, have pass breakups and sacks and tackles for loss and good numbers of tackles in general. You don't get to do all of that without being an aggressive player. You also don't get to do all of that without being an intelligent player. It's not just that Jalen Hicks is able to play football and accrue stats. You watch him on the field and he is diagnosing things as he goes. In fact, if you look at everything on the left side of that screen, all of those strengths, they're going to really scream a certain player in NFL history, in fact, in Kansas City Chiefs history, in fact, in recent Kansas City Chiefs history, even when you pair them with the weaknesses. Now, taking these strengths one by one, he is aggressive. He is going to move forward. There are times at Washington State where he was basically lined up as a linebacker, and you saw him, when the ball was snapped, take that linebacker step forward, that little hesitation step that goes forward for a linebacker at the snap of the ball every time. He was doing that despite the fact that he was close to the line of scrimmage and only 211 pounds. When you pair that aggression with intelligence, one thing that he is adept at doing is understanding that certain plays are going certain places. And once he has diagnosed that, he sells out to get there in time. Now notice, I said he sells out to get there in time. I did not say he sells out in order to make the tackle. Don't get me wrong, making the tackle is certainly a goal, but it might not be goal number one, because the forecast is pain. Jalen Hicks is one of these players that collects paint on his helmet. And really that leads us down to strength number 3. Jalen Hicks is a junkyard dog. He reminds me very much of Nick Bolton in that way, and I'm saving this comparison, which you probably see coming, for the analysis part of things. But as far as current Kansas City Chiefs are concerned, Nick Bolton is the same way, plays the same way with his hair on fire that Jalen Hicks plays. If you told Jalen Hicks and Nick Bolton that the only way to win the Super Bowl this year would be to clean the restrooms at Arrowhead Field after the game, guys, they would do it. That is a junkyard dog mentality. Those are the guys that Steve Spagnuolo seems to like to collect. That's not, for example, a Tyreek Hill thing. Tyreek Hill would not be cleaning the bathrooms. And, by the way, I say this as a man who part of his job is cleaning public restrooms. Now, on those weaknesses, number 1, he is aggressive. Guys, that is going to bite the Kansas City Chiefs at least a couple times this season if Jalen Hicks ends up on the field for any extensive period of time. There are some really bright minds putting together play packages at the NFL level. And if Jalen Hicks gets the sort of reputation that he's someone who will sell out, he will be sold out. Along with that, sometimes he will sacrifice a tackle for a big hit. I will also say that conversely, he is smart enough to recognize sometimes when that big hit is not going to be there, so he will try to trip up the ball carrier just as well as he will try to deliver a great big hit if he can. So I don't think that he's doing this recklessly. I think that what he's doing is maybe at times overselling whether or not that hit is going to actually take down the ball carrier. That said, Washington State played Wisconsin this past season. The notable thing about Wisconsin is that they employed Braylon Allen, a running back who went 6'1" and a quarter at the combine and had a weight of 235 pounds, and Jalen Hicks did not care. Braylon Allen, by the way, Jaden Hicks went pick 133, Braylon Allen went pick 134 to the Jets. So that is just an interesting little tidbit. But Jaden Hicks didn't care that Braylon Allen is that large. In fact, he seemed to say, well, prove it. And he ended up sinking Braylon Allen behind the line of scrimmage on at least one occasion. Now, another weakness here, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, I think, that he looks like a different player in man-up coverage. And I think part of this is that it's easier to bait a quarterback when you're playing zone coverage, and that seems to be a very big part of his game. And in the man coverage, like when he's playing a receiver tight, it seems almost as if he loses some of that agility, I think what it might be is that he's trying to be too aggressive while knowing that if you are that aggressive while you are that close to the receiver, you're toast if you mess up. So I think this is something that coaching can kind of fix/help him with. But all in all, guys, if all of your weaknesses are a byproduct of the fact that you play the game maybe too hard sometimes, I think Steve Spagnuolo will take that all the way to the bank. Now, guys, the analysis portion of this video. In my opinion, it is impossible to watch Jaden Hicks tape and not feel little tremors of young Tyrann Mathieu. Now, don't get me wrong. Young Tyrann Mathieu had an ethereal, sort of shamanistic knowledge of what the play was going to be and where the ball was headed. It was unreal at times how good at the sport of football Tyrann Mathieu was. In fact, if you had taken me back to his last season in Arizona, it's possible Tyrann Mathieu ends up in the Hall of Fame. It's possible. If we went back, I believe it was 2017 when he was in Arizona for the final year, I would have said he's first ballot. I would have said if this guy plays his entire career, he is definitely a first ballot Hall of Famer. Tyrann Mathieu, back at that time, was a junkyard dog. He was the honey badger. He did not care. In my opinion, this is what happened to Tyrann Mathieu. If you go back and you look at his snaps, when he left Arizona, he stopped playing special teams. When he stopped playing special teams, he sort of transcended hoity-toity to that coach on the field mentality. And that came with this switch of mindset that sometimes Tyrann Mathieu is too good to do something. That is not Tyrann's responsibility. And that's how you go from being someone that I would have guaranteed you Tyrann Mathieu is a first ballot Hall of Famer to, he might get there. Sort of. That is a weird sidebar for talking about Jaden Hicks. And, again, Jaden Hicks is an intelligent player. Jaden Hicks is an aggressive player, but he does not have that supernatural connection to the football that Tyrann Mathieu did. That said, he's really good at the sport of football. I had to eat crow a little bit last season because of the fact that I said, look, the next play that I see Justin Reid make will be the first play that I see Justin Reid make. I had to eat crow a little bit because Justin Reid was a very productive member of that defense last season. Justin Reid proved me wrong. He is good at the sport of football. He is not aggressive in the way that Jaden Hicks is aggressive. And here is why I am channeling the name of Justin Reid. Justin Reid is the top of the billing for the safety spot in Kansas City. Justin Reid is 6 foot and 1/2 inches compared to 6'2" from Jaden Hicks. Justin Reid is 207 pounds compared to 211 for Jaden Hicks. Justin Reid ran a 4.40 40-yard dash, which is 1/10 of a second better than the 4.50 posted by Jaden Hicks. Justin Reid's shuttle drills were much better, a 4.15 20-yard shuttle compared to the 4.37 by Hicks, a 6.65 three-cone drill compared to the 6.88 by Jaden Hicks. Jaden Hicks' 37.5-inch vertical is 1 inch better than the 36.5-inch by Justin Reid. They posted the same 16 reps on the bench press. In my opinion, looking at the upside of both of these players, and I am emphasizing on the upside, I think Jaden Hicks is going to end up being much closer to the upside of his potential than the downside, and a very large part of that is that junkyard dog mentality. Listen, yes, the Kansas City Chiefs do like to play three safeties. Yes, the Kansas City Chiefs do return Justin Reid, who has taken 1,113 snaps in 2022 and 981 snaps in 2023 for these Kansas City Chiefs, including both of those Super Bowl runs. Or the snap counts are only the regular season, so we're adding the playoff runs to the total there. But what I mean is he was in the game the entire time, both of these successful seasons. Guys, I don't know if his job is safe. Now, again, yes, the Kansas City Chiefs do love to play three safeties. Yes, if you were going to start picking off starters, you don't start with Justin Reid. The Chiefs are likely to start Brian Cook as well at the other safety, insofar as he does return from that nasty ankle injury. Yes, the Kansas City Chiefs also do have Trey Dean, a very, very intriguing player at the safety position. They have Tyree Gillespie, Najee Johnson, Dion Bush, and Chamari Connor as well. And what I mean to say by starting with Justin Reid is simply this. The Kansas City Chiefs have won 2 consecutive Super Bowls, but they have not had outstanding safety play during that run. They've had good safety play. I think that Brian Cook did a very good job. Justin Reid is maybe as solid a safety as you could ever hope for. I think Jaden Hicks can be a difference maker at the safety position. Now, guys, I wasn't sure the Kansas City Chiefs were going to pull the trigger on a safety in this draft, and I definitely did not envision it being as early as the 4th round, so I didn't do a whole lot of work on the safeties in general. But after this pick was made, I went back and started trying to pick up on who is this guy? What does he do? What is he good at? And because I wasn't bringing this video to you day of the draft, I went ahead and took in other people's opinions as well. And time after time after time, guys who follow the draft, guys who prospect prospects, guys who the draft is their thing, when they saw the Kansas City Chiefs drafted Jaden Hicks, they said it was a value, and they kind of scoffed at it. Oh, the rich get richer. Oh, Jaden Hicks on the Kansas City Chiefs? Man. Well, there's some value there. That is a value-add pick. I can't believe he fell that far. This was time and again. And sometimes when you start without that, so I started the research first before I said, well, let me dive into this. Because sometimes when you start researching a player and forming your own opinion, like I did with Keon Coleman, so everyone now says that I'm wrong about Keon Coleman. I understand where that sentiment comes from. He fell all the way down in the draft. He ran a 4.93 40, whatever it was. Guys, I still believe in what I said about Keon Coleman. When I started watching JADEN Hicks and thinking, man, this guy looks like he could start. This guy looks like he could start early. And I couldn't believe that I hadn't really done any work on him. I feel comfortable telling you, I am not positive any of these safeties' jobs are safe. The Kansas City Chiefs said goodbye to Mike Edwards this season. He came in, he wrecked shop, and he left, right? He had some very memorable plays as a member of the Kansas City Chiefs. He was a playmaker. That was what Mike Edwards did. He wasn't really a stats guy. He wasn't really a measurables guy. He was just a right place at the right time kind of guy. And Mike Edwards ended up playing 621 snaps for the Chiefs this past season. I feel very comfortable. if JADEN Hicks steps onto the field for those same 621 snaps this NFL season. Bryan Cook played 12 games and ended up playing 592 snaps for the Kansas City Chiefs. Again, we don't know where he will be with that injury once the season starts. And by the way, if anyone has heard anything about Bryan Cook and his injury, please let me know, because I have no idea. But if the season starts and all of a sudden the three safeties on the field for the Kansas City Chiefs are Justin Reid, JADEN Hicks, and Shamari Connor, I'm not worried about it. Now, I will say, and obviously there is always a conversion rate when you're talking about college to the NFL, regardless of what the 40 time is, JADEN Hicks looks faster than both Bryan Cook and Mike Edwards to me. JADEN Hicks, looks faster than Justin Reid to me. And like we started out saying with the measurables on JADEN Hicks, look, Bryan Cook might hit harder. Mike Edwards might end up in the right place at the right time more often. But I think JADEN Hicks is going to be in the right place at the right time more often than Bryan Cook, and I think JADEN Hicks is going to hit harder than Mike Edwards. Guys, I think JADEN Hicks has a legitimate chance to be a starter for the Kansas City Chiefs this season. Now, I want to take a step back real quick. Ozzie Newsome, one of the greatest general managers of our age, basically laid out that what you really have to do is land 3 starters every year in the NFL draft. Otherwise, you find yourself in trouble. Last year's draft did not yield many starts in general outside of Rashee Rice, let alone starters as rookies. I think it is possible that Wanya Morris becomes a starting offensive tackle. I think Shamari Connor is likely to ascend to a starter for the Kansas City Chiefs. Whether or not FAU ever does, I don't know. I can't tell. But that means that ultimately you got your 3 starters out of that draft. We know how well Brett Veach has been doing in the draft prior to last season's kind of slow start. I think Xavier Worthy is going to start at wide receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs week 1, snap 1. I think that is going to be necessitated by Rashee Rice's absence. And even when Rice comes back, the Kansas City Chiefs are likely to start 3 wide receivers with a wide receiver in the slot, and I think that guy will be Xavier Worthy. Kingsley Suamataia is, in my opinion, likely to start somewhere on the offensive line at some point in his rookie season. And I find it likely that JADEN Hicks is going to be a rookie season starter. Now, I do think that it is likely that is where the starts will end for these rookies in their first season in the NFL, but that's enough. That's the 3 that you need. Anyway, guys, that's all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, consider hitting the subscribe button in order to stick around for more Kansas City Chiefs-based content. The Chiefs are the only thing that I cover on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week, and I hope to have you back for the next one.